Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Elizabeth Ferry. I'm David Ferry's daughter. Um, just a few remarks and a little bit of a plan for the evening. So this is a celebration of the book "Some Things I Said," which was printed just a few weeks ago and is here for you to take a look at and get if you'd like to. I want to say that that of course we hoped that my father would be here to celebrate the book, and that he hoped so. Um, that wasn't possible. He passed away, as you know, on November 5th. We will be having a memorial service for him in March. That will be close to his 100th birthday, and we'll be getting the word out about that. So this is not a sad occasion. This is a happy occasion about the book, and this is something that my father wanted for tonight. So I want to tell you a little bit about how it came to be. The title poem of the collection is "Some Things I Said." This is one of the final poems that my father published. It came out in Poetry Magazine in, I think, the fall of 2019. And so he submitted it for publication about 6 months before then. And I was helping him submit it. It was through the online system, which he hadn't used before. And so we were, filling out the little fields and everything. And then at the bottom, it says, please understand that it typically takes us about 7 months average to get back to you. And here's a comment box. So he says, well, could you put in the comment box that I'm 95 years old? So if you could be a little more quick in making your decision, I would appreciate it. And to their credit, they got back to him in 7 hours as opposed to 7 months. So my brother Stephen and I had been thinking for some time about doing a book with him. We, along with my cousins and others of our family, and I think many of you in this room, his friends, we'd been doing a lot of reading with him of his work and other work during the pandemic and since then. And my brother and I wrote a bit about that, and my brother has some wonderful photographs that he's gonna tell you about. So we were trying to figure out a way to do a book that would allow him to continue working as well, because as you know, he was blind at the end of his life, and that was very difficult for him. And we thought about different ideas. One book we thought about was a book that was based on his poem "Everybody's Tree," which appears in this book, and there's also a kind of reference to it on the cover photograph. Also a book somehow around the underworld, which, as you know, was a place in his life. Even more so now. But I think the best idea that we had was the one that culminated in this book, and it was the best idea because it really is his idea. As some of you know who have read the poem "Some Things I Said," and as you'll hear shortly, that's a poem that refers to nearly 40 other poems that he wrote. And so in a sense, it's the table of contents for the book as well as an essential part of it. So Stephen will describe the structure of the book to you as well, but it's essentially the poem "Some Things I Said," and then all the poems that it refers to, and all of those together are some things that David Ferry said. We, as I mentioned, had really hoped that he could be here, and we'd been telling him about it, and he was very excited. When in early November, when it became clear that wasn't going to happen, and we were trying to figure out ways to kind of get the physical object of the book into his hands so that he could be a part of it. The universe gave us something because he was, I think on Friday, November 3rd, he was in bed. He wasn't really talking. It was clear that he was going to die soon. And I called my brother, and we brought my sons, and and decided that he would go into hospice. And uh, my my cousin and also our friend Clay Reed and some other people had a great idea, which was to, since we didn't have a physical copy of the book, we printed the PDF of the book, and my cousin took the pages out of a book of the right size and put the pages in, and we put the cover on, and the universe. And then he woke up in the morning and he was actually quite lively and ready for a launch. We said, we're gonna have a launch. We bought some champagne. The people showed up because we had told people that he was going to be entering hospice, and so the universe brought an audience, and there were about 15 or so people, and we had something quite a bit like this event where people read parts of the book. He held it, he thanked us. It was and that towards the end of it, I wasn't totally sure he was exactly catching on, and then I put the book by side, and he said, "Where's my book?" Sorry, here's your book. So he definitely knew it was up, and that was really a wonderful thing. And the next day was the day that he died. So I'm very grateful to the world and to all of you. Okay, so you're going to hear a little bit from Stephen about the book itself. And then the poem, Some Things I Said, read by my father's and our family's dear friend, Alan Shapiro. And then some readings and remarks by Dan Chiasson and George Kalogeris, both of whom are contributors to the book, and we so appreciate those contributions. And then you'll have a chance to buy the book afterwards. In accordance with our father's wishes, all proceeds for the book will go to benefit the Grolier Foundation, to support the wonderful institution and this is in honor not only of our father, but of his dear friend, Iviana. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I'm Stephen Ferry. I'm David Ferry's son. I'm wearing his cap. So as Elizabeth said, we had talked a lot about making a book together with him. And when we settled on the idea or proposed him the idea that it be something I said, he also, thought it was a really good idea that George Kalogeris be editor with us. Perfect. So that process started probably a year ago. Thinking about this amazing poem, which also functions as an anthology, and we'll talk more about that and how that concept relates also very much to our mother's work, particularly her book Tradition and the Individual Poem, about how anthologies function. So that was interesting, but it poses a bunch of challenges. Okay. It poses a bunch of challenges in terms of editorial design. It's we thought a lot, consulted a lot, talked with our dad a lot. He couldn't see it, but he understood conceptually what were the issues. Some things I said, each verse refers to a poem that he said, that's in the past tense, but he's saying it again, so it's also in the present. And, which page is the past, on the left or on the right? What kind of typeface to use, which kind of typography reflects, is sensed more. Maybe that varies individual by individual or culture by culture, but there are also conventions that give a suggestion of what's in the past and what's in the present, whether it's in serif or sans serif and so forth. So we thought a lot about those things. One clue to how this poem anthology works is it's found here. So that's the scheme. Some things in the past are in black, and him referring to having said them is on the right. That took more time to figure that out. And from then on, what's on the right-hand page is the stanza from something I said. The entire poem is at the beginning, and throughout you read separately. He was really insistent. I think he probably knows more, but something I really, yeah, something I really relate to. Just lean into it. Um, our dad did have a very visual concept about the way the words would appear on pages, and he was very clear and definite in the case of this poem that it had to have asterisks. And so we thought a lot about that because it makes it, the whole poem flows, but it also allows each stanza to be kind of its own little poem. And he didn't want dashes. I mean, I think they went back and forth with the online publication. He insisted it has to be asterisks. So we thought a lot about exactly which kind of asterisk to use. You have a lot of choices. So that goes into it. And then the part that Elizabeth mentioned before, having to do with our work and our reading with him through the pandemic, led me to sort of start really taking pictures of my father with intention. He never really liked being photographed, so but there was a certain moment when I said, I'm going to be taking your picture. So the first picture in the book is also a reference to the Grolier. Appropriately, here is Ifeanyi and Gitik in the front row listening to my dad saying what he said from the bookstore. The middle picture in the book, as Dan will say, this whole book is in many ways about the passing of our mother and her presence and her absence. So this photograph is also actually works a little bit like the poem because it's a photograph of a photograph. It's a requote in a way. I took a picture of her, and there's light which reflects off of the glass, and that light is what makes her half there and half not there. So I was thinking a lot about, what ways could I learn from how he did this poem, and maybe how to try to reflect that photographically. The last picture is an easy read. He's off to the underworld or whatever's at the end of that street. But I thought a lot about shadows. The word shades comes up often in his poetry. So I was thinking about that at the moment that I took this photograph. And the cover has to do with many conversations we had in this period during COVID while we were reading about vapors in his poems and in his translations happen. Vapors come out of the ground and so on. And we were in the middle of COVID, and that was kind of on my mind too, because that's a vapor. So I got onto this like obsessive thing about photographing steam all over the place and thinking about it as something that somehow related to his poetry, but without yet having a use for it. So I'm really happy that there are vapors on the cover of the book. On page 66, there's one reference to that, which is a conversation I had a lot with my dad about, okay, how come, when did this start, all these vapors in your poetry? The fumes on the roof are visible and drifting away like martyred souls, I said. So that was the reference there. So that's the thinking that went behind the visual part of this work. Thanks.
Hey, everybody. One of the many things that I learned from David's poetry was the use of repetition with modification as a way of dramatizing a felt change of consciousness. And that principle is not just semantic, but it's not just sonic, but it's also semantic. And I think one of the amazing things about this poem, Some Things I Said, is that he's repeating bits and pieces of the various poems that he'd written. and altering them and changing them this is such an odd and beautiful poem of summing up, because it doesn't sum up at all. By fragmenting all these beautiful poems, he's plunging himself right back into the slings and arrows of lived experience, just as bewildered in these new poems as he was in the original that he's alluding to. So he's not summing up from outside the world, but summing up from inside it, on the edge of leaving it. So this is some things I said. Writings on the wall. I was the one who said the ditch in the backyard was maybe a river that had flowed from somewhere else and was flowing to somewhere else. I was the one who said, where are you now? I was the one who told about the one whose photograph in the book of Eakin's photographs was of a guy, the perfection of his body was his doom, and Shakespeare said so too. Right there before my eyes was the one who said, where are you now? Where are you, Anne? I was the one who saw how Aeneas lay there in the darkness, watching the light, the little motions of light moving around the ceiling and telling him something. I was the one whose mother's voice called out of the urn, beseeching. I was the one who said how the daylight knocks at the lid in vain. I said, keep to yourself, be close, be wall, all dark. I said, good people are punished like all the rest. I said, the boats on the river are taking it easy. I said, the brain in your head whispers. I said, death lives in our words. I said, how beautiful is the past, how few the implements, and how carefully made. I was the one who said her body witnesses, so also is her voice. I said, better not know too much too soon all about it. Where rhymes with beware, I said. I said it is the body breathing, the crib of knowing. I wish I could recall now the lines written across my dream, is what I said. I said the horse's hooves know all about it, the sky's statement of oncoming darkness. The fumes on the roof are visible and drifting away like martyred souls, I said. I said the knees of the committee touch each other under the table, furtive in pleasure. I said Eurydice, my father. I said we huddle over the ice, the two of us. To squeeze from a stone its juice is her art's happiness, is what I said. I am the one who said, I hum to myself in a humming dream. And how we're caught, I said, in language, in being, in feeling, in acting. I said it's exacting. I said the sea upheld us, would not let us go nor drown us. And we looked down, say 1,000,000 years, and there were the fish. See, the dead bloom in the dark, I said. The nightjar feeds while flying softly, smiling, smiling, I said. I said, revenant, white-faced death is walking, not knowing whether. I said the formula on the blackboard said, who are you? I said, Utnapishtim said to Gilgamesh, blink of an eye. I said, where are you now? Where are you, Anne? Stands in my stone, my father poet said, VWX, stones and sticks. The day doesn't know what day it is, I said. What's in the way the sun shines down, I said. He cried in my mute heart, what is my name and nature?
Hear me okay? I'm really honored to be a part of this project and to have an opportunity to re-engage with this great poem, unique, completely one of a kind. And the book that's evolved out of it, I think, is really, truly just totally one of a kind. To think about it, I mentioned this in my introduction, to think about it, I sought out 2 books off my shelf, both by Anne Ferry. One was her great book about anthologies, and the other was her book called The Title to the Poem. So in rereading it, I realized, again, that it's an elegy for Anne Ferry. And I think it was sort of magical that I patch together my sense of it from her work. So I was grateful to have that opportunity. Two quick memories of David. One, when we were first friends, I was a grad student at Harvard. We used to eat at the Arunia. Remember the Arunia? Yeah, the garlic soup. They would bring it out gratis. And after lunch, we were walking along, I guess, Mount Auburn Street, and the Lampoon building was up ahead. And David started laughing hysterically. I don't know what was going on. And he said, "That building looks like a face." And it does look like a face. Yeah. And then he said, "It looks like, looks like Mr. Potato Head." And then the second story, many of you will know the circumstances, is I got the best voicemail I've ever gotten in my life from David Ferry in 2012. This was it. "Dan, call me up. I died last week." It's true. He had a very serious incident with a piece of steak or food and was pronounced dead for not a negligible interval of time. And then when I saw him, he said, "I can report that there is no afterlife." So anyway, I'll just read three poems from this book. The first gets its title from a favorite poem by Wyatt. "That now are wild and do not remember. Where did you go to when you went away? It is as if you, step by step, were going someplace elsewhere into some other range of speaking, that I had no gift for speaking, knowing nothing of the language of that place to which you went with naked foot at night, into the wilderness there, elsewhere in the bed, elsewhere, somewhere in the house beyond my seeking. I have been so dislanguaged by what happened, I cannot speak the words that somewhere you, maybe, were speaking to others where you went. Maybe they talk together where they are, restlessly wandering along the shore, waiting for a way to cross the river. This is called Roof. This is the poem with vapors. Roof. David's poems are very wonderfully pleasurable, but also hard to read aloud, partly because the syntax, he's often honoring the meaning of the line. So you want to pause, but he also is honoring the unfolding syntax down the page. So you want to keep going. So when I was thinking about reading these poems, I was thinking about how cunning the enjambments are and how on your toes you have to be. So anyway, I already, in that last poem, I think screwed up many times, but oh well. Roof. 4 or 5 men on the high roof of the apartment house I see from out my window. Angels or other beings from an element other than ours, but similar, although superior, so bright and clear, perfected in diminutive particular. Angels or little brilliant demons or simian creatures with nose and mouth, mask snouts, against the fumes of the material a tiny glittering machine is putting down. The fumes are visible and drift away, like martyred souls made visible in the radiant air. And then finally, from me, this is a poem called Garden Dog. Garden Dog. In the winter, out in the winter sunlight, watched from the upstairs window by the binocular eye, out in the winter light, the dog is wandering, sniffing for enemies burrowed in Ireland sometime in the 19th century. What's in a dog's heart? The terrier brown coat touched into orange flame, blue, purple, pink by the binocular gaze. The brilliant monster is wandering, smelling the winter air. The wind is light. The light is wandering, blown by the breezes. What's in the way the sun shines down? Sniffing the sticks and stones, sniffing the dirt and dormant, unflourishing grass in the garden, out in the winter light.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm George Kalogeris, and I'm so grateful to be part of this magnificent book that Stephen and Elizabeth have put together. And so glad to be reading with Alan and with Dan. What are the wild waves saying? David Ferry once asked in a poem. And he answered that query by saying he didn't know. But his lines knew. For him, the music happens inside the line and carries you along with it, like a surfer cresting a wave. It's both discipline and wild energy. The wildness of the waves themselves comes with its own regularity. And right from the start, David said, it was a line from Robert Frost's poem, great poem, Once by the Pacific, that overwhelmed him by the overlapping, cascading power of its lines. When I first saw the poem, I think what so startled me was that David had broken the lines up, and he's, has such a genius for the iambic pentameter line, and yet was willing to make this radical shift in this late poem. And I think it was a reminder that he was always an experimental poet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the brief afterword that I wrote to the book, and then I'll read 4 poems. David Ferry once described his extraordinary poems, Some Things I Said, as a table of contents, and entertained the notion of expanding the number of stanzas to include fragments from all of his poems, as well as one selection from each of his books of translation. As it stands, the entire arc of his work and the essence of its content may very well have taken shape in that exacting, visionary abruptness with which the poem crystallizes what his poetry can do, as one by one, the cascade of lyric fragments demonstrates the enormous tonal range and cumulative power of his uncanny imagination. Above all, his tender, grievously purified, eloquent recognition that we are all fellow sufferers, as inscrutable to ourselves as we are to others. Quote, I cried in my mute heart, what is my name in nature? End quote. As such, bewildered creatures that we are, we often don't have the time of day, although how could we, since, quote, the day doesn't know what day it is. Perhaps most surprising is that the form of the poem does not allow the lines to assume an iambic pentameter structure, the art of the blank verse measure, for which Richard Wilbur hailed David Ferry as the unrivaled contemporary master. There's great daring in this late, extensive break from a perfected, sovereign style. The subtitle of the poem, Writings on the Wall, quote, I wish I could recall now the lines written across my dream, is what I said, end quote, suggests a liminal, plain-spoken, oracular, urban graffiti. Writings on the darkening walls of Troy? Encountering the jagged stanzas of Some Things I Said, I cannot help hearing an echo akin to the fragmentary language of the songs in Virgil's penultimate eclogue, as we listen to the shepherds whose pastoral lyrics are breaking up in the dusky shadows of the sacred groves. Quote, the shepherds are trying to keep their world together in song, replying to song, end quote, writes David Ferry in one of his exquisite notes on translation. I was the one who said, sings the poet, as the lines break up, yet the mournful eloquence remains. I'll read 4 poems. The first one is Down by the River, and the fragment that's in the book is I said the boats on the river are taking it easy. Down by the river, the page is green. Like water, words are drifting across the notebook page on a day in June of irresistible good weather. Everything's easy. On this side of the river, on a bench near the water, a young man is peaceably stroking the arm of a girl. He is dreaming of eating a peach. Somebody's rowing. Somebody's running over the bridge that goes over the highway beyond the river. The river is blue. The river is moving along, taking it easy. A breeze has come up, and somewhere a dog is barking, acknowledging the stirring of the breeze. Nobody knows whose dog. The river is moving. The boats are moving with it or else against it. People beside the river are watching the boats. Along the pathway on this side of the river, somebody's running, looking good in sunshine. Everything going along with everything else, moving along in participial rhythm, flowing, enjoying, taking its own sweet time. On the other side of the river, somebody else, a man or a woman, is painting the scene I'm part of. A brilliantly clear, diminutive figure works at a tiny easel, and as a result, my soul lives on forever in somebody's heavenly picture. The fragment from the next one is, I said good people are punished like all the rest. To Sally, now we've been sitting up all night, waiting to find out what the story is. I watch your beautiful, patient face. It's as if you didn't know all that you know. Your mother in mortal danger. You speak of something funny that happened. What will have happened, maybe, before your story's finished? Good people are punished like all the rest. I wanted to get one of David's translations into the mix, so I'm going to read Chiasson, which is one of the Horace Odes. And it was, David was sort of challenged to translate it by a terrific classicist, Donald Kahn Ross. And with that impetus, he went on to translate all of the odes and a great deal of Horace and all of Virgil. To Cestius, the fragment from the poem is, I said revenant, white-faced death is walking, not knowing whether. To Cestius, now the hard winter is breaking up with the welcome coming of spring and the spring winds. Some fishermen under a sky that looks changed are hauling their caulked boats down to the water. In the winter stables, the cattle are restless. So is the farmer sitting in front of his fire. They want to be out of doors in field or pasture. The frost is gone from the meadow grass in the early mornings. Maybe somewhere the nymphs and graces are dancing. Under the moon, the goddess Venus and her dancers. Somewhere far in the depth of a cloudless sky, Vulcan is getting ready the storms of the coming summer. Now is the time to garland your shining hair with myrtle and with the flowers the free-giving earth has given. Now is the right time to offer the kid or lamb and sacrifice to Faunus in the firelit, shadowy grove. Revenant, white-faced death is walking, not knowing whether he's going to knock at a rich man's door or a poor man's. Oh, good-looking, fortunate Cestius, don't put your hope in the future. The night is falling, the shades are gathering around. The walls of Pluto's shadowy house are closing you in. There, who will be lord of the feast? What will it matter? What will it matter there, whether you fell in love with Lycidas, this or that girl with him, or he with her? And I'll finish with one more short one. It's called Good Night. And the fragment that David chose was, I said it is the body breathing, the crib of knowing. Good night. Lying in bed and waiting to find out whatever is going to happen. The window shade making its slightest sound as the night wind outside in the night breathes quietly on it. It is parental hovering over the infantile, something like that. It is like being a baby, and over the sleep of the baby, there is a father or mother breathing, hovering. The street light in the nighttime branches, breathing quietly too, altering, re-altering. It is the body breathing, the crib of knowing, something about what the day will bring, and something about what the night will hold safely, at least for the rest of the night, I pray. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sebastian. I am David Ferry's grandson. We're at a bar. I cried in my mute heart, what is my name and nature?
Others whose hearts were sore at a bar. While in a bar, I bore indignity with those others whose hearts were sore or sour or sick or such as made them humankind. I looked into my glass to see if I could find something to give me ease. Narcissus at the pool, I looked lovingly at my disordered fool who would looked around the bar, saw my fellow creature bravely standing there. By word, sign, or touch, I cried in my mute heart, tell me, be my teacher, be learned in that art. What is my name and nature? My pulse ticked in my wrist. The noon hung around unawares. Outside, the traffic passed. Like quiet cattle or such, standing about a pool, dumb, ignorant creatures, my fellow, myself, my fool, ignorant of our natures.